Hi, Michael. Hi, Mary. Can you hear me okay? You're muted, Michael, and so are you, Mary, if you can unmute yourselves.
Okay, how's that?
That's good.
Okay.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you.
Yeah, I've heard, I won't say I've heard lots about you, but I have heard about you.
That's nice. Where have you heard about me? On the
Well,
internet?
I think from my wife.
Ah,
I
who's your wife?
think Mary Luttrell Coyo. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I thought you were her Pilates teacher, but that's very possibly I've got that confused.
Well, because of the pandemic,
Mhm.
I haven't been in the studio as much as I used to, and I do online Pilates too. So the name isn't popping immediately into my head, but I'm not good with names. I'm good with faces.
Okay,
So
can't help you there.
so her name sounds familiar, but I can't place her face.
Where did you practice?
I'm in Sebastopol.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, but
Well, that's nice. I'm awfully glad you're here.
yeah.
Do you have postural issues and chronic pain?
Well, that's an excellent question. I have chronic pain, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah.
Postural issues. My wife sure thinks I do. And so, but just what those are and just how to address them,
Exactly.
I wouldn't be able to say. And I guess that's why you're on board. So
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about my journey and why I created this program.
okay.
And hopefully it'll be something that'll be helpful for you too. It's what I wish I had found back when I was going through so much pain. And I actually became did you lose my audio?
No, I got it. I'm just looking here at my picture and it looks like half of my face is black. And I wonder whether I should change the window over there, if that would help.
It's not important that you're well lit. You can just listen today. We are going to do some experiential things, but you don't have to be screen ready. Okay. I don't know how many people are coming. I invited quite a few people, but also people know that they can watch the replay. So it might just be the three of us. No, actually, I know some other people who said they would be here. So let's give them just in fact, when I came on earlier, she was here and now she's gone. So let's give them just a few minutes. It's a few minutes after. Let's just wait a couple minutes. I hope you guys can be forgiving if I'm kind of clunky with technology. One of the reasons that I don't do a lot of this stuff is it just terrifies me. Even though I've been doing it for years, I just get kind of like a deer in a headlight when something goes wrong. And I get really nervous.
Yeah,
I actually have a backache right now just from getting ready for this, which just proves that chronic pain can be from emotions and stress.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna get my slides ready, which means I'm going to there. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yay, I did it. Hi, Mary. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
Hi. Have we met in person?
No, we have not.
I'm awfully glad you're here. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Francisco. Actually, I just sold my property in Sebastopol, so
Ah,
I could have gone to your studio there, but I'm now in San Francisco. So.
well, I'm awfully glad you're here. We'll get started, and if somebody else joins us, we'll let them in. So this was kind of last minute that I decided to do this workshop because I just felt like there's kind of nothing that I know of that's quite like my program and the way that I work. And I think that people don't quite know what I'm doing and why it might be advantageous. So I'm going to talk about my journey and what I've created, and this can be completely interactive. You can stop me and ask me questions. We'll do some experiential stuff. I really, since it's the two of you, I'd really love your feedback and questions. So I'm calling it Improve Your Posture with Ease, Not Effort. And what I find is that so many of us were taught shoulders back, chest up, tail under, so much tension that we're attempting to have good posture, but we're actually just adding tension, which holds our joints closed and keeps us from moving freely. And then your only option is to stand up taller, lift your chest more, slide your shoulder blades more, work out harder. And we don't find the ease that we're looking for. So who am I? I'm Kristen Eupenlotz-Grech. I'm a master Pilates teacher. Oh, look, I misspelled Pilates. That's my first, my first error. There should be a T on Pilates. I've been teaching for 23 years and practicing myself for 29 years. I came to Pilates after 2 car accidents. Before anybody was talking about Pilates, it was I was in San Francisco and there were just a few little studios and somehow I found it. I'm also a Coreline master instructor, which is a piece of apparatus that takes that kind of Pilates work into standing posture. It's a ladder with moving carts underneath you. So it really applies all of this core work to standing, which is why I love it so much. I became a foot and gait therapist last year during the pandemic online. I was already doing a lot of that work, but I did a program and I've got a certificate. I'm also an actor, director, and theater arts teacher, which is important because it really informs the way I work, the way that I imagine myself in your body and in your shoes and feel very empathic about people's bodies and why I think I'm good at what I do. When I was just a crawling baby, my sister put a leash around my neck to play doggy and pulled and smashed my chin into concrete, and I had to go get stitches. And then I was running down the street a few years later with a big glass jar to catch a butterfly, and I fell and hit my chin. And then I was spinning on my roller skates and I fell and hit my chin and had to get stitches. So I think those injuries set me up for some of the patterning in my head. And then when I was 12, we moved to the mountains and I took an old rusty bike up a steep hill to the market nearby. And on my way, and I was barefoot. On my way home, I realized that there were no brakes. So I had to slide into the gravel and I gouged the side of my left toe. When you're 12, you kind of wash out the wound and go about your way, which is what happened. We didn't have any insurance at the time. I don't even think we would have done anything if we did. And I didn't realize that I walked differently for 40 years. Well, until still, it affected the way that I stand and walk and have access to that big toe. Then in college, my next door neighbor dipped me while we were goofing around and my knee popped out of joint. Same leg as the injury on my toe, because the way that I was walking, I was setting myself up for limited strength in my inner leg, which I certainly didn't know at the time, and nobody said anything about that. And after that injury, I went right back to my waiting tables job and worked, furiously. It was Christmas holiday, so I was working in a yacht club, going up and down stairs with trays of food at the holidays, and a lot of stupid shoes. Even though I always had foot pain. I liked cute little vintage heels. So I wore those a lot, which was stupid. And as I said, 13 years of waiting tables set up a lot of my patterning of holding thing, just some patterns of holding my body and getting through the day. And then right before I found Pilates, I had 2 car accidents within 2 years where I had some severe whiplash. But that's my story. I'm happy that I found Pilates. That made a big difference. And when I first started Pilates, I couldn't move very much. My body was very kind of frozen. But over time, I started getting more mobile and I felt much better. But I always had pain after a Pilates class. And I thought that that was inevitable because my doctors, after my car accidents, had told me that it was a soft tissue damage and there was nothing they could do. He said, get a massage or do yoga. He didn't know what to tell me. So that planted the seed, the nocebo effect, the opposite of the placebo effect, that I couldn't feel 100% pain-free again, that I would just have to live with this. So I thought that was the best I could do. Thankfully, I found some incredible mentors who helped me let go of some of the tension, and I feel better. I'm turning 60 in March and I feel better than I ever have. I still feel like I'm able to do the things that I want to do. I went stand-up paddleboarding yesterday, and I mean, I'm not amazing, but I'm better than I used to be. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to use my knees the way that I need to stand up paddleboard. So I'm 60, I'm slowing down and things are a little bit more creaky, but compared to the way I was, I feel pain-free and fully able to hike or do anything that I want to do. So I had 2 light bulb moments.
Mary, my name is Sylvia, and I'm calling from Sonoma Clean Power, and I spoke with you early today.
Michael and Mary, maybe you should mute. There's some background noise.
Really?
Well, it
I
might
did-
not be you, Mary.
I can mute. I can
Yes,
find it.
if there's no sound behind you, then don't worry about it.
Sorry
So-
for the sound.
That's okay. No big deal. Yeah, go ahead and unmute if you want to say something, but keep it on mute just in case some noise happens. So my first light bulb moment was with Wendy LeBlanc Arbuckle, who's one of my mentors, an incredible woman, Pilates teacher. And I went to her studio in Austin for another reason, but I had an opportunity to be working on an exercise, and she noticed how tense I was, and she led me through this experience of dropping the weight of my body down onto the exercise equipment. And I had it felt like a rebirth. It was so different than anything that I had ever experienced, which was usually lifting myself up and putting a lot of tension and effort into the exercises, which I thought it looked pretty good. But she taught me how to drop into gravity and articulate my spine by dropping my weight down rather than lifting myself up. And it was a really profound moment. It changed everything about the way that I think about certainly my Pilates movement and also the way I teach. And then I had another light bulb moment at my kitchen sink in Sebastopol. I don't like to cook very much, but I've got a husband that doesn't like to cook, and I've got 2 teenage kids. And so I'm always in the kitchen. I'm usually kind of grumpy cutting vegetables. And at this point, I was cutting vegetables at the sink and feeling the familiar pain of tight shoulders, terrible. I called it the zing. It was like a nervy pain that went up my shoulder blade into my neck, and I would get a stiff neck. My hands were numb, lots of chronic pain from the car accidents that were unresolved. And in this moment, I became aware of my body. I noticed that my feet were very externally rotated. My knees were hyperextended. My pelvis was leaning against the sink. My rib cage was popped forward. My shoulders were up by my ears and my head was forward. And I was having a lot of pain. And I just had this moment of realization that I was not holding on to the work I was doing in the Pilates studio. In the Pilates studio, you align your body and you put your feet a certain way and you're very aware of where you are in space. And I was not holding on to it into my daily life. So I rearranged my feet, softened my knees, brought my pelvis back over my hips, let my rib cage soften down, let my shoulders slide down my back, and my head came up on top, and I had zero pain. So that was the moment when I started to realize that just by moving my body into a certain position and dropping my body into gravity, the pain goes away. I found this percentage online. I don't know what that means, but it said somewhere on the internet, 58.9% of US adults are living with pain, and the prevalence of chronic pain is on the rise. So I saw a bunch of different articles about that. I don't know how you could say exactly how many US adults are chronically living with pain, but I think we certainly, almost all of us, have experienced it, whether it stays with us long-term or not. One of the reasons I think that it might be on the rise is our sedentary lifestyle. So many of us are sitting more than ever and on computers, and anxiety. Life is stressful right now, especially the last couple of years. And movement heals. So getting all of those parts of you moving naturally, actually physically creates a healing process. But when we're in chronic pain, our nervous system wants to keep us still because it doesn't want us to be injured or be in danger. So part of my fall shift program is dancing in the kitchen, because we explore different parts of our body. And then after we examine what's going on with our body, we move with joyful abandon. And for me, I've found that integrating new awareness and movements into daily life is most fun with your favorite music, dancing around the kitchen. So it doesn't have to be dancing in your kitchen, but some kind of joyful expression of movement is my favorite way to integrate. I used to attribute this quote to Einstein, but I just found out that it is not really Einstein. It was an article about Einstein, but it was written by N.V. Scarf. The highest form of research is essentially play, which, if you think about children exploring and learning so many new things, basically they're just goofing around and allowing themselves an opportunity to experience different things. It's really important to understand your specific body and patterns so you can release the old tension in order to build new alignment and natural strength. That's what I found for myself and for my clients. So your nervous system and your fascial structure, which is all the connective tissue, which is where the information is traveling in our bodies. Your nervous system and your fascial structure wants to keep you safe. So limiting your range of motion makes sense to your nervous system so that you limit injury or danger. And your body wants to find the most efficient movement, which means it wants to go to your big muscles. And if you're ready here, it's just going to move those muscles first. So we need to explore those deeper muscles that we haven't woken up quite as much as the big muscles. And when your bones are in the right place, it's much easier. So here are some of my concepts. I talk about bobblehead, bell, bowl, and boats. So this is the experiential portion. If you'd like to stand up and do this with me, you can, or you can just watch me and think about it. It's up to you. So I'm going to step back here. Let's move the computer a little bit further away so you can see my whole body. This is brand new for me to have these earbuds. So I'm hoping it's new for me to step away from the camera and still be heard. Can you hear me okay? Can you see my whole body? Let's see, I'm going to make this bigger.
Can't see your whole body.
I'm going to move back. See my whole body pretty much?
Your head is cut off.
Not my head. Oh, we don't want to cut off my head. See my feet?
Yep.
My head?
I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the technology too. Now, when you put the slides on, the slides dominate my screen, and I've just got a tiny square.
Oh, let's take it back
Is
to,
that something you
let's
control
see.
there?
Yeah, I have
Because
to
of-
go. Oh, I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah,
Is that back to bigger?
Yeah.
yeah.
There we are. All right. So we're going to start at the bottom at the boats. So sometimes I talk about your feet like cars with 4 tires. That would be the big toe ball, the pinky toe ball, and the inner arch. So it would be 1 tire, 2 tires, and right in here, rather than the tripod, which many people talk about the foot as a tripod. But what I find is that if you're trying to find the exact center of your heel, it's very challenging. And most of us either go heavier on the inside or outside. So I talk about it as a car, so you can feel those back 2 tires evenly. But to confuse you even more, instead of cars, we're going to talk about them as boats. For right now, it's kind of the same idea of a vehicle, but boats, think about like a kind of a floaty boat. So we're going to think about our feet like little boats. And if we were in the boat and we kind of went over to the side, you put more weight on your outer right foot and your inner left foot. Notice how your body responds. And we're going to put more weight on your inner right and outer left. And so we can go back and forth and either hold the body still and just move the feet, or we can allow the movement of the feet to move the whole body. We can also go forward and back. If you were in a boat that was rocking, forward and back, the whole boat on top of the bottom of the boat shifts. And we could also go front right to turn the corner, front left to turn the corner, back. Does that make sense a little bit? We're noticing how the movement of the feet affects the whole body. So now on top of our boats, we have the bowl of the pelvis. And the bowl of the pelvis either tilts back. If it were a bowl of water, all the water would run off the back. Or the bowl is centered. Maybe the bowl is full of water and none of the water is spilling out. Or we're tipping our bowl forward and all the water is rushing off of the front of the bowl. Or it's coming back, what we call this is neutral. So the bowl is not spilling any water. We can also tilt our bowl this way. All the water falls off to the right, center, or left, center. Make sense? On top of our bowl of the pelvis, we have the rib cage like a bell. So a lot of us don't really realize how much movement we have available in our rib cage. We hold it pretty still. But if you can think about the rib cage like a bell, if you put your hands here, you can kind of feel the bell ring forward. Come to center, the bell rings back, shoulder blades slide apart. You might have more ease going one direction or the other, and you may be stuck. Some of us get stuck with our bell ringing back. Some of us are stuck with our bell ringing forward. And with this analogy too, you can swing your bell to the right and center and swing your bell to the left. And you might find, like I do, that one way is a little bit stickier. And then we can move the bell ding dong all over the place. And the way that our boats are in the water affects our bowl and affects our bell. So if our bowl is tucked under, the rib cage is definitely going to be affected. It may ring back, or we might push the rib cage forward in opposition to counterbalance. Same with the arch. We might let the rib cage swing forward, or we might pull it back to counterbalance. So that would be a compensation pattern. And everybody's pattern is specifically unique to their experiences and their body, the way their bones are, the way their lived experiences, their injuries, emotional tension, all that stuff. And then on top is your bobblehead. the head is going to respond and organize on top of all these other components. So if we go heavier on our heels, all the things in between are going to respond, and then our head on top is going to do something. Now, I don't know anybody actually who compensates by bringing their head back. I'm sure some people do, but mostly our head comes forward to organize what's going on below us. Most people have some sort of forward head, especially since we spend so much time looking at our phones and sitting at the computer. But you can't encourage your head to be up on top of your spine and even over your feet unless all the other parts are organized underneath. So your visual system, your auditory system, your vestibular system, all of those things are orienting themselves to centered and balanced on top of what's going on. So if you're standing like this, your head's going to do this. Your body, your vestibular system, your vision is going to think that you're straight. And then when you put yourself over here, your head's still, if your head's still over here, it's going to be difficult for you to feel that you're even. So that's why we need the bobble head to adjust on top. And it's a process. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Good. So one of the reasons that I recognize this is because from all those injuries, not only the falling on my chin, but the car accidents, my head was very forward. And every time I was in these advanced trainings, I was a Pilates teacher for many years. I was, I thought I knew what I was doing. And every time I would be in kind of like a experience of a bunch of teachers teaching each other. I remember once there was like a round robin where the teachers were all going around and teaching each other. Every single teacher said, lift your head up, lift your head up, lift your head up. I thought I was, but obviously my head was going back down because that's what my body thought was the most efficient, smartest, strongest strategy. So it took me a long time to figure out that my head was not going to sit up on top of my spine until I organized my shoulders and my rib cage and my pelvis and my feet. So that's where my thinking came from. Let me grab my glasses. Do you have any questions at this point?
No.
Good. I guess.
I mean,
Maybe some questions?
I had questions, but I'm not sure they're germane to what you've just told me.
Well, yeah,
So-
and yeah, we'll keep exploring, and maybe I'll answer your question
Okay.
just because it's part of the information I'm sharing. So when we think about Pilates, we think about the core. If you think about your core as a container, there's a top, a bottom, a front, and a back, and sides, just like a can. The bottom is your pelvic floor, which is the hammock in the bottom of the pelvis. The diaphragm is the hammock underneath the rib cage, which is the hammock under the bell. The front, you can see here, make that smaller. You can see there's 4 layers of abdominals, and then there's these side body muscles, which create the front of the core. And on the back, all this series of muscles along the pelvis, along the spine, create the back support, the multifidi. So if you think about the core as top, bottom, front, and side, often when we think about core exercises, I feel like we miss out on the connections between all of these pieces and how that affects the shoulders and the hips. So I talk about this. Well, I didn't come up with slings of support. The slings of support is the fascial lines that connect the muscles. So the fascia is the connective tissue. So the most important one to this work, I think, is there's the connective tissue that brings the latissimus dorsi, which pulls the shoulder down the back, interdigitates with the serratus anterior. Then there's the external oblique, the internal oblique, and the opposite inner leg. And we have that on both sides. And there's a front and a back. So you don't have to know the names of all the muscles. You just have to know that we have this natural sling that supports the connection of the core to our limbs. So I think about it as a rectangle, and you can feel your bony points to get the rectangle. And that is another piece of feedback so that you can figure out where you are in space when you try to shift things so that it is more balanced. If you put your thumbs on your rib cage points and your fingers on your hip points, depending on how long-waisted you are, I'm kind of long-waisted. So you can feel these 4 bony points making a rectangle. Now, if you have the right rib cage forward and up, or you're shifting your hips, you're going to have a parallelogram rather than a rectangle. So you can feel, with some practice, if you're rotated, you're going to feel that it's not quite even rectangle. In fact, if you just move yourself side to side, you can feel the rectangle moving. And to find that rectangle holds the bony points in place, then we have the X's. Oh. And that is this bony point to this bony point, X, that's the oblique line, and this bony point to this bony point. So that's a piece of that whole system. But you can find that connection. Just like if you were doing an exercise where we were doing like a crisscross, you'd feel that oblique line get closer. So even when we're not rotating and contracting those points, we can still feel that X of support. And it happens on the back too. We've got a rectangle on the back and an X on the back. The rectangle is the bottom of the shoulder blade points and this top of the pelvis here. So when your front rectangle is wider, your back rectangle is getting squished. When your back rectangle gets bigger, your front rectangle gets smaller. And basically, we're just moving the bones. That's moving the pelvis and the rib cage back in space, opening up the back rectangle and closing the front rectangle. And then the X is from shoulder blade point to opposite hip, shoulder blade point to opposite hip. It's actually lat to QL, which is the muscle that lifts your hip. That's the fascial line. So I know I'm giving you a lot of information. It's really just kind of to give you an idea of how I teach. So if you decide to join the program, we'll go into much more detail in each workshop and how these ideas can be integrated with the work we're doing each week of investigating each part of the body individually. Down the back, up the front. That's the idea of dropping into gravity. So when we're in that standing posture where we were thinking about the boats and the bowl and the bell and the bobblehead, if you can sense the heavy weight of your bones down the back, just feel the weight of the shoulder blades, that you don't have to hold them up. You can allow them to sink. And feel the weight of your sit bones. If they're forward, they're going to be kind of tucked under. If you can let them come back over your heels and just feel the weight of your pelvis, feel the weight of your sit bones, and feel the weight of your heels. So my mentor, Wendy, calls this the waterfall down the back. So just imagine there's a torrent of water rushing down your back. So you don't have to hold yourself up. You can just feel that heavy weight. The collarbones and the rib cage are part of that back line. So just imagine you have like a cape on. You're going to feel the cape sliding along your collarbones and rushing down your back. Same with the rib cage. Instead of the rib cage popping forward, it slides in and is part of that heavy back line. Once you've felt that heavy back line, the front line wakes up. And the front line is the arch of the feet, the inner thighs to the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, and the roof of the mouth. So if you can kind of think about the lift of those hammocks going up naturally against the weight of the back body dropping into gravity. That concept took me about 10 years to understand. I was pretending that I understood it for a long time before I actually understood it. And I did a year-long mentoring program with my mentor, and before I really fully understood it in my body. So I have empathy for how challenging that is to feel, even if you, so I just encourage people to imagine it, even if they can't quite feel it. Some people feel it right away, but because I was so opposite that it took me some time to drop into that feeling and understand how beneficial that could be. So the release to awaken, if you've got all this tension, your body, you can't really invite those deeper places to lift you up because your body already has a strategy of tension, of shoulders up by your ears, of rib cage forward, of head forward. If you can relax those, then the natural deeper muscles wake up. Our external muscles are the phasic muscles. They're designed to be really strong, pow, kick, punch, lift, and then they're supposed to go to zero and hang. But our deep muscles, the phasic muscle or the tonic muscles from inner thighs, low belly, all those deep postural muscles, they're supposed to stay on at 20 to 30% and hold you up. But if your big muscles are on all the time, those deep muscles kind of atrophy and they don't hold us up. That's why it's so hard for some of us to sit up tall. It took me many years to learn to sit up tall on my pelvis because I was so used to sitting behind my sit bones and having other muscles hold me up. So it does take some time, but for me, the secret was to let go of the tension and allow the natural lift, the natural deep foundational muscles to come back online and get strong. One of the components of this program is a postural assessment. And because you guys are here live, if you decide to join the program, you get a bonus of a video and audio pre and post program postural analysis with my expertise, showing you, well, you'd see the first one first, and then after the program, you'd see a second one. I take a video, put it through an app that I have, and I draw little lines on it, and I talk about what I'm seeing. And the reason I think that's what I found that's so important, and part of what I discovered was during the pandemic when I had to go online, and I started working with people in their own homes via Zoom, and we used this postural analysis or just exercise analysis feedback. And I saw how powerful it was for people to see what I was seeing, because your nervous system and your vision and auditory and vestibular system can't quite understand the visual aspect. Is really powerful. If you, I mean, you may have an experience of people saying your shoulders up, or somebody's bugging you about your posture. You may not have that awareness. And part of becoming aware is having visual feedback. It's been really powerful. But this is really touchy. There we go. So I call my method. Do you have a question, Michael?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And it relates to what you just said about, if you're twisted, right, you might not feel it. Well, when I have severe spasms, I'm twisted. Believe me, I know about it.
Right.
But there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
At that point. Are we talking the same thing?
Well, to a certain extent, at that extreme point. So here's what I think. Pain is generally the body's trying to tell you something. So if you listen, if you learn to listen, you can shift out of postures that might give you pain. If you push through, if you don't know how to listen to pain or get visual feedback, you're going to get to a place where you have a spasm. So at that point, your body's going, you're not listening. Boom, it's going to just shut you down. So then you feel it, but what you may not notice is that it's very subtly, you're already in that pattern. You're working your way up to that spasm, but you don't even recognize it. It doesn't come out of the blue. It comes out of how you always take the garbage out, or how you always lift the cat food, how you always reach behind you in the car. You always do it with your stronger side, you probably because your body is efficient. It takes more effort to use your deeper muscles. That's why we practice exercises to strengthen those deeper patterns, so that when you go to automatically lift something, you don't overdo that old injury where your body's going, excuse me, I have to shut you down because you're really going to hurt yourself unless you stop. I can't let you keep shoveling or whatever you're doing. You're gonna really hurt yourself. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think I get what you're saying. Basically, the awareness you're talking about needs to come early on.
Right.
Everybody's aware when they're crippled, I guess.
Right. Right, exactly. And so here, this awe approach, and this is based on the learning in 4 components of we're all, before we learn something, we're all incompetent, but we're unconsciously incompetent. So first we got to become consciously incompetent before we can become consciously competent, and then consciously incompetent, then consciously competent, and then unconsciously competent. So those are the 4 how we go through a process of learning something. So I've turned it into this idea. The first step is awareness. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know that we're standing on the outside of our feet, and that's jacking up our back. So just little moments of awareness of, oh yeah, look at, wow, just pick a couple times during your day and look at your feet. Oh my goodness, wow, I never knew that I was on the outside of my feet. And oh, look, my shoes are actually holding me there, for a lot of us. And then consciously, we look at our alignment. We become conscious of where our feet are. If we squat, do our knees go out to the side? Do our knees fall in? Do they both go to the right, both go to the left? Can we hinge in our hips? Do we have tight hips? What's going on with the whole body? That's the alignment piece. And then application is choosing some of the things you do every day, like me at the kitchen sink. Just bringing that awareness and that alignment into application of the way you drive, the way you brush your teeth. So that's the application piece, which is conscious competence. After you practice for a while, it becomes unconscious. It's your body it chooses that new strategy as a better strategy because you've practiced it. You've created the ease in the outside muscles and the strength and the awareness in the newer muscles. And I call that health, because you're just unconsciously competent now. And when you go to pick up your trash can or feed your cat, you do it with all of this alignment and strength so that you stop hurting yourself. Or if you hurt yourself, like for me, every once in a while, if I'm rushing or I'm not taking good care of myself, I'll still feel a little bit of a zing, but I don't react the way I used to. Instead of going, this is terrible, I just sit and go, okay, I was rushing, and I let it go, and I don't hold on to it in a tension pattern. So it's lesser and lesser, because we do still deal with real consequences of injury, but we can respond differently. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So here's some of the things that I talk about when I teach. Puppet strings. Imagine you're being hung from the ceiling. If you were being hung from the ceiling, your arms and legs would dangle. Imagine your arms are just heavy, your legs are so dangly, they're just barely touching the ground. When you're being held by a puppet string, this is what would happen if you drop the puppet string, and then the puppet string lifts you up and your pelvis comes back into alignment, your rib cage drops. You don't have to work with these outside muscles, you're just allowing everything to drop, and you're depending on the deep foundational strength, which is the puppet string, which over time becomes stronger and you can depend on it more. So just remembering that feeling of being held up against gravity. Leaning into the wind, I talk about that because so many of us are here. So if the wind came up, you'd fall back over. So if you bring your pelvis behind you and slightly lean into the wind. And like I said, it feels weird. At first, it feels strange because you're in a new place. Like for instance, if we were going to be doing lifting and lowering the heels, we could do it like that, or we could incorporate that tighter rectangle or the deep X, and we would feel this participating if we were leaning into the wind, slightly on an angle that way. And when we walk, we definitely lean into the wind. Otherwise, we do the keep on trucking thing rather than the kind of slightly walking into the wind. All right, I get ahead of myself. So those are just some things that I say. And then why are the feet so important, and why do we start with the feet? The first week of the 6 weeks is the feet, the exploration of the feet. Well, one reason is so many of us are not in touch with our feet. Our culture has taught us to smush our feet, squish our toes together, and put our feet in tight shoes and walk on hard surfaces. And if we have pain, we're to put more foam and more arch support. So really, you can't move your feet at all. You're just binding them, and and that does relieve the pain. If you have very painful feet, having an arch support and lots of foam around your feet does feel better. But your feet are getting less and less information, and your feet are supposed to be getting information about the whole body, the whole experience. Our feet are designed to climb and walk over uneven surfaces and give us information about where we are in space. Well, we've lost so much of that by squishing everything together, and we've lost ankle mobility. So just getting your feet out to let them play and get more mobility can be incredibly important, even if you don't think about the whole rest of the system. But like I said, the feet are the foundation, and what's happening in the feet translates up the body. So just by organizing your feet and recognizing, like the program, I know I'm giving you tons and tons of information right now, but the program is really meant to pick one simple thing each week. So we might talk about all of this stuff. We're going to, work with our feet, but the idea is not to do hours of exercises every day, but to figure out what is the one most important shift. For me, it's my outside back left heel. Because of the injury on my big toe, I kind of fall into the center of my foot, and that sets up a weak pattern in my leg, which affects my back and my hip, and my shoulder comes up in opposition. So if I just anchor my outside left heel, everything up my body responds, and I have less pain in my shoulder, less pain in my left knee, which are my left SI joint, my left knee, and my right shoulder. Those are my pain points. If I'm not anchored into my whole foot, especially my outside left heel, then I tend to get in pain. If I'm anchored into my outside left heel, I feel more supported through my whole body. Everything can relax and I don't feel so much pain. Because I've been working on it a long time, it happens much more naturally now. I'm in that unconscious competence phase. Yes, Michael?
Yes, I'm wondering, as you're explaining your own body there, my experience in talking to others, I think it's a shared experience that one part or one side of your body is quite a bit stronger than the corresponding side or part. So are you, in your program, do you concentrate on getting a symmetry of strength, or is it more structural, as you said, with your left heel, etc., or is it a combination of those?
Well, it's a combination. Mostly this is about the structure, but we are doing exercises too. They're small, little bit like I just did the heel lifts. That's a great exercise. And if you are somebody who has an exercise program, you could start to bring this into your exercise program. So say you're doing something in the gym, you might notice that you do a lot of the work just with your dominant side because it's a shortcut. Can you let the less strong side have more responsibility? So
okay, I get that. Is your focus, however, more on alignment and therefore
yes,
rather than strength?
the focus is more about exploring where you have pain, where you have limitation, and then moving into small bits of exercise, which can be then incorporated into the things you're doing every day, which can include exercise. So we're not going to go into a big exercise, although I'm going to add some sequences. So there's a weekly workshop, and then there's Q&A Friday. So what you could do, Michael, is you could say we're working on the pelvis. You could, in the exploration workshop, you could notice that you tend to squeeze your glutes and tuck your tail under. And then you could be having awareness of just how you sit and how that affects everything up and down in a couple moments in your day. Then on Friday, you could say, wow, I can really see how when I XYZ, whatever it is you do, lift weights at the gym, I'm tucking my tail under, my shoulders are up by my ears. I'm not getting the connection that Kristen's talking about through my back X. And I can see how that could help me stay not symmetrical, but balanced, because our bodies aren't going to be symmetrical, relatively symmetrical, but we're not trying to find absolute symmetry. We're just trying to find balance. Mm-hmm. So you could ask me a question about an exercise that you were doing at the gym or pickleball or whatever you do, or picking up the garbage. And then I could give you some input. I could watch you do the exercise. You could send me a video of what you're talking about. And then I could give you some specific information about how you might find support through the whole body to make especially a movement that might be giving you pain. So this program is not necessarily an exercise program, but it is using components of movement that we use in exercises. So depending on who you are, like the last program I did, I had actually had 3 clients with knees that prevented them from standing for long periods of time. I also had a Pilates teacher who's super fit, and her problem was actually she doesn't want to stop teaching, but even though she has pain, she just wants to move all the time. She's super strong. And what I was thankfully found is that the program worked well for both groups, because you can take it into what you're doing. One person was just trying to stand up and down from her chair without pain. But then the Pilates teacher was trying to include this new information into her exercise program, which was helping her notice when she was misaligned doing bigger exercises. So they both improved and felt less pain pretty quickly. which I was really super relieved about. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think you did. I brought up another question, but I'll save it.
So actually, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
That was it, starting with the feet. So the program starts next Tuesday. The workshops are between 3 and 4:30. I'm going to stop here and take questions and answers. That was pretty good. That was about an hour. We're going to skip the week of Thanksgiving. And then the week after Thanksgiving, we'll do the final head and neck. You don't have to be there. Everything will be recorded. Some people are more comfortable just watching it on their own so they can stop and go. But you will receive the recording so you can go back and rewatch portions of it if you want to. So the workshops are on Tuesdays. There'll be 6 of them: feet, knees, hips, rib cage, shoulders, and head and neck. We're building on each one. The idea is we investigate and explore, then we choose the one thing that we're going to play with that week. And you can have more than one if it feels, you can do 1 to 3, but at least one thing you're going to notice. You're going to pick some moments in your life, notice how that plays into, especially a moment that you might feel pain. And then you're going to make a small shift into better alignment, more balance. On Fridays, we'll have Q&A. Like I said, you can ask me a question about how that integrates into something that you're doing. You can show me what's frustrating you or confusing you, and I'll give you my input. And we can certainly create exercises out of it if that's something that you're looking for. I don't know quite when I'll do the Q&As on Fridays, depending on who joins me and who's available. I might do 2 different half hours, but you can also send in a question or a video, and then I'll respond with a video or answer your question. And then on the weekends, we dance. Like I said, integrating all of this into joyful movement, whether it's playing or running or whatever walking on the beach, whatever makes you feel joyful. For me, it's dancing. So we, like the week of the feet, we play with our feet and dance in the kitchen. Not everybody thinks that's fun, so you don't have to participate in that, but it's super fun. We'll probably do some different times for the dancing. There's a silly picture of me dancing. Do I have this thing over it? Here I am. I can't move past it. There we go. Oh, geez. And the fast action bonus is that if you decide to join me at the early bird price of $547 for the 6-week program, I'll throw in a postural analysis with audio feedback pre and post program, which means you'll take a video of yourself and send it to me. I'll send it back with 4 different views of your body, and I'll draw lines and show you what I see. And then after the program, we'll do the same thing, and I'll do a comparison video. So you'll be able to see how your body has changed over time, and you'll hear my voice tell you, especially if I get to know you, I'll be able to give you insights and feedback. And that's the last one. That's all I got. Did you want to ask me that final question, Michael? You had another question you thought of?
Yeah, I had a couple, but I don't want to dominate if Mary's
Well,
good.
there's only 2 of you, so I imagine it might be one of Mary's questions too.
Okay.
Mary, can Michael ask his questions? I think she
She's
probably will.
muted, but
Yeah,
I guess I'll
she can jump in anytime. Jump in, Mary, if you have a question.
okay. Let's see if I can remember. Oh, darn.
Do you want to tell me about what's going on with your body?
Well,
Oh, Mary's gone. Hi, Mary.
Not right now. I guess
Okay.
one of the things, just an administrative question here. Are
Mhm,
you
yeah.
aware that I have already signed up for your early bird?
Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, because I realize that the full audience might not have, and so you had to adjust there. So are we going to be doing, so really at the end of this 6 weeks, your goal for us is not so much that we have adopted an exercise routine of 5 push-ups and 3 sit-ups and whatever. It's more that we, through an awareness of our bodies, that we carry ourselves differently.
Yeah.
And we,
And that
okay.
includes exercises. You
Yeah,
might think that if you feel better and you're in better alignment, you'll be more likely to do a new exercise program. And I'm a Pilates teacher, so I do teach exercises, but this is really my expertise over the last 23 years. This is what is my specialty, because I've developed an eye for, and I have a very intuitive sense. And I find that in so many exercise programs, people just push through their pain and they think they're going to just get stronger and it'll get better. But one of my favorite people to work with are people, who are previously very active and are older now and have trouble doing all the things that they want to do because there's some patterning that all as much strengthening and exercising, it doesn't change it the way you want it to. So little moments in your day.
Okay, well, let me, I had jotted down a couple key questions too as we went through.
Yeah, as much as you want.
When you started out talking about how our lifestyles are so much more sedentary. Do you have a definition that you're comfortable with of what is sedentary and not sedentary? For example, if I do 10,000 steps a day and then sit on the couch for 5 hours, am I sedentary, or what is it? Because I think maybe I read somewhere, and this isn't rocket science, because everybody that I've ever talked to about these kinds of issues say, keep moving, always keep moving. And I think you said it, sit on the floor, but then don't sit on the floor for, move again, etc. So how would you define non-sedentary?
Well, I mean, in the big picture, when Joseph Pilates first created his method, people were doing chores and feeding the chickens, and they had farms, and they had their, they were plowing fields, and we don't do as much of that. Things are just more automated, so we don't have to. So even if we're exercising and walking or running or all these things, we sit a lot. We sit to eat, we sit to drive, we sit to work. So even if we're generally an active person and get lots of steps in and go to the gym and all that stuff, it doesn't really make up for the fact that we have less range of motion. For instance, so it's not so much sedentary as we have less range of motion too. We don't wash our clothes by the riverbank, so we don't have to go into a deep squat. And, we don't use the toilet in a deep squat. We're just limited. We don't have to climb trees to get our food.
Yeah.
So we have to replicate that somehow, or things get sticky.
So it's really, I think the answer that I'm hearing is, it's great that you do 10,000 steps a day, Michael, but if you need to be moving all throughout your active day, pretty much.
Well,
I mean, within reason.
Well, and two things. One is, when you're sitting, how are you sitting? Can you sit on a ball? Can you sit on the floor? Blah, blah, blah. But the other thing is, are you reinforcing a pattern that's hurting you in your 10,000 steps a day?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I found that I was. I wasn't pushing off with my left big toe, which was cutting out a whole connection. So my right shoulder was up. I wasn't utilizing the left big toe, wasn't getting me into my hamstring and my glute and that oblique line. So my right shoulder felt like it had to do a lot of work. Once I got that left big toe working, each step is a better, I'm also a gait therapist, so I like to really, the next shift program will be about integrating this all into walking. This is the
Okay.
first piece of really understanding how you hold yourself and where you have pain.
Okay. I remember the question that I had lost there, and that was, have you come across in the past people who do other practices? Are they counter to what you're teaching? And the reason that comes to mind is a little over a year ago, I started doing some Tai Chi with a fellow.
Yeah.
And he wants me to tuck my pelvis such that I have a crease that he calls a quaw, right here where my legs meet my pelvis.
Yeah.
And most of the time when he makes me do that in the position that I'm in, it's very painful. And I'm wondering, am I not supposed to do that? Is Tai Chi not in alignment with Pilates, et cetera? I just wonder if there's any insight you have there.
Well, two things again. First, if you were coming to practice with me, I wouldn't force you into a movement if it hurt you. I would say we're on our way here, and this is why. And I think a story just came to mind of he was a Pilates teacher. I mean, he was a Pilates student of mine. He was also an acupuncturist, like a high-ranking acupuncturist who learned from a master from Japan. It was very, very specific. He always had to approach it was energetic. He had to approach the student from this side of the table, and that was hurting him. He was always rotated this way. But it didn't occur to him that he could change it. And finally, because he was working with me, I kind of said, maybe you could go on the other side of the table. He asked his Japanese mentor, and he said, of course, go on the other side of the table if it's hurting you. So you might, I mean, I don't know if you've told your Tai Chi teacher that it's hurting you, but what my program can do is help you figure out why it's hurting you and build the strength, the release in the tight muscles and the strength in the opposing muscles so that has more ease for you.
Okay.
The second piece is people who do something like Tai Chi often come to my studio and they're a little bit stuck in that posture. So like for me, I was a ballet dancer. I wanted to be a ballet dancer. So I did all of this very ballet stuff. I turned out my legs, I lifted my chest, and I walked like that all the time. So basically, if the tucked under posture is appropriate for Tai Chi or whatever you're doing, you don't want to walk down the street like that, right? So we got to find neutral. What is neutral? You go into your posture that's appropriate for your activity. And then even if you don't look like that anymore, you might be taking a little bit of that with you, right? How can we get mobility in the pelvis? If we're tucked under, we're not getting the push off and the open hip that we need.
So
right?
do you have is there a correct posture to stand and walk?
There is, well, I mean, basically, what is ease and what is happening for you today? Everybody, that's the thing, everybody's different. And so much of exercise and stuff is you're prescribing, you must do this, you must do this. For me, in Pilates, I was told to externally rotate my legs and tuck my tail under and lift my chest, but I was already a ballet dancer who was overdoing that. So what I needed to do was bring my feet to parallel, untuck my butt, and get more neutral for everyday life, even though in the exercises, the external rotation, the glute tuck for the big exercises was appropriate. But I was walking out of the studio like that. And over time, that was getting stronger and stronger, and my foundational muscles were turning off.
Okay. So let me see how I can best frame this question. One of my problems, I believe, for much of my life is that I have a quite straight spine, all up and down,
Mhm.
which means that I've got lots of pressure at the L5S, the sacroiliac joints,
Yeah.
the lower lumbars, and I can't stand very, long. I can't stand standing for very
Yeah.
long. And I think over the years, I probably got maybe some natural fusion at L5S1 or whatever. Is it your understanding that that can or should be changed? Can I somehow, or should I somehow work on getting that curvature back in my spine so I don't have everything ramming straight down?
Well, that's not my expertise.
Mm.
I mean, that would be x-rays and doctors, and everybody would have a different opinion. A surgeon would probably say, I can fix that for you. I work with lots of people pre and post surgery, whether they decide to surgically change something or not surgically change something or get some kind of treatment. Here's what I think. If you've got bones that aren't moving anymore, whether they will or will not with practice, I don't know. We'd have to work on it. But if you're not dropping the weight of your spine down and articulating it to whatever extent you can, then you're losing out on the deep abdominal support on the other side.
Mhm.
So what I would say to you is getting some mobility, probably in your hips, because your hips are probably locked trying to manage
Yeah.
your spine. So that would be where I'd start you.
Mhm.
Can you have more mobility in your hips where you do have mobility? Because everybody's got something.
Yeah.
People have bone on bone hip pain. We can't just go in there and, you have to live with what is true. Like the people in the program who had trouble with their knees.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell them to, jump up and down.
Yeah.
We had to deal with what is. But what I do, if you came into the Pilates studio and you wanted to do spinal articulation, I would pad up your back so that your back would not have to drop to the floor, but it would be like lifting the floor underneath your lumbar spine so that you could feel the weight of the bones. And that's going to wake up the deep abdominal support. And that's what's going to make you feel less pain, because you're not just holding on to all those muscles along your spine. You're feeling the front and back, the support, the balance of support through your inner legs, your outer legs. I think probably your feet, your inner and outer legs, and pelvic mobility will address some of the reasons that you have pain from a less mobile spine.
Okay. Last point then that I'll bring up. It's not really a question, it's just a concern.
Mhm.
I'm not stupid, but it seems like it's hard for me because I've listened to postural
Mhm.
therapists before, etc. It's hard for me to translate what you're saying into exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with my body. Are you skilled at that? Can you help me? Because when you stand and say, tuck your pelvis. Tuck your pelvis is even a hard thing for me. Okay,
Yeah.
I can tuck it under, I can tuck it back, what, or to what degree are you, and with the Zoom thing, it seems
Yeah.
like it's even more difficult because you can't feel,
Well, it's really, this program is really about your exploration.
Okay.
You can certainly ask me questions if you don't, so just get as much as you can. I try to be as simple as possible. So basically, like in the foot workshop, we're going to all sit and put your foot in your hand, put your hands in between your toes. Can you do that?
Mhm.
What if you can't? Begin. What can you do to start getting some movement in the toes? Make note of
Right.
what is going on. Do you have a bunion? Can you move your toe?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me
That's okay.
mute this.
Where do you have, palpate your own foot? Where is there pain? Can you move your foot like this? How's your Achilles? We're going to do lunges and note how tight things are. So each week will just be, it's going to be an hour and a half of just exploring your feet, sitting, standing, forward and back. And you're going to note, I can't find my inner tires. My foot doesn't even want to go there. Oh, I can't hear you now. You're still on mute, Michael. Are you talking on the, oh, you're talking on the phone or? Okay,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
that's okay.
Pardon me.
That's okay. You need to take a call?
No, I'm done. I was just saying I
Okay.
couldn't hear you at the time because
Oh,
of the blaring of the answering machine and
oh,
stuff.
oh, oh.
That's all.
So I was
so-
talking about how each, because, I mean, really the reason that I created this program is because I kept doing postural workshops. And I, like you, was like, oh, geez, it's so much information.
Yeah.
And it took me years to kind of unpack it for my body. Because it's sometimes it felt like everybody in the class was like, oh, I get it. And I would overcorrect and come back and they'd say, what, I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Mhm.
So I was super frustrated and I wanted somebody to be able to say, you gave me this exercise and I thought it was like this, but now this is what's happening to me. Can you tell me why? And I wanted them to say, oh, well, it looks to me like you're not using your inner thigh very much. Let's squeeze a ball between your inner thighs, wake up that muscle. Now do it again and see, oh, either, oh, that really hurts, or, oh, that makes it better. So I wanted somebody to see me grappling with this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. I said that was the last thing, but you just brought up something else. Is there any equipment that I should be getting to help? Like you said, sit on a ball. Should I have a ball to sit on?
Well, yeah, if you have some stuff, I can, what I tend to do is show you cool possibilities and then give you, you can sit on a chair, you can fold up a towel, a squishy blanket will give you the same kind of feeling. So, you know, when I got my Pilates certification, there weren't any fancy things. We used dog toys. Everything had like little bells and honking things in it because there wasn't any exercise equipment. But now you can go into Target and there's a whole aisle of balls and bands and stuff. Like for instance, one of the things that I like to do is take an old t-shirt and just cut it off. And that's a band. I like it better than the fancy bands.
Mhm.
So we can talk about creating, you know, I like to do push-ups here, just on your,
Right.
so you can just, you know, so you don't need
Sure.
some fancy piece of equipment that holds you in the right place and, you know, tilts your pelvis for you.
Yeah.
Because we want to live in our house, in our world, and each piece of equipment, and I mean, each piece of furniture and the things that we interact with are our tools.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, great. So it's every Tuesday, 3
To 4:30.
3 to 4:30
Yeah,
for 6 weeks, except for the Thanksgiving week.
exactly.
And even
We're
if I participate live, I can still review what we did
Yes.
there. It will be recorded and I can
I'll
have
send it.
access
I'll
to
send you
that.
the recording. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's give it a shot. I would
Good.
love it if it helps.
What we'll start with is your postural analysis. So I'll send you a video with an explanation of postural analysis and what you can do.
Mhm. Okay.
Let me know if that feels too complicated and we could actually do it on Zoom.
Okay. You did bring up another question I had. How do you recommend we do videos? You said we're to send you videos, or we can send you.
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah,
So
just on your
just on the
your
iPhone,
phone. Yeah.
and then
Or a
just
picture.
email it or text it to you or something.
Yeah, and I'll send you the course, which will have all the
Mhm.
videos and all the information you need.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you.
It's wonderful to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and good luck with your teenagers.
My daughter's turning 18 tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
We're getting matching
Congratulations.
tattoos.
Yeah. That's interesting. I just have I happen to have I inherited a granddaughter to come live with us here 2 months ago. So
Oh,
she's turning 18 in 2 months. So she's got her own bag of issues, so I won't compare her to yours, but yeah, it's a challenge.
it's an interesting time, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay, Kirsten. Is
All
it
right.
Kristen? Kirsten?
Kristen,
Kristen. Okay.
Kristen.
Kristen. Okay.
And I'm going to share this video. It will just have my face, but is it okay if we have your voice in the replay for everybody? Your
Okay.
questions? That's
All right.
okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
See you
Michael.
next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.